The story begins with Jae-Hun, a man down on his luck and drowning in debt. Abandoned by his family and struggling to care for his ailing mother, he was desperate for a way out. Desperation led him to join a deadly game where 500 participants risked their lives. In this brutal competition, even the smallest mistake meant death, as a merciless robot enforced the rules. In a heart-wrenching twist, Jae-Hun betrayed an elderly cancer patient to survive. Though he emerged as the sole winner, the victory came at a heavy cost, haunted by guilt and the memory of 499 lives lost. After winning the game, Jae-Hun found himself with an enormous fortune, but the weight of his guilt kept him from spending a single penny. He was consumed by regret, believing the deaths of the other participants were on his hands. One day, he received an unexpected call from a mysterious man asking him to visit the hospital. To Jae-Hun's shock, the caller turned out to be the elderly cancer patient he thought had perished in the game. Seeing the man alive left him bewildered. It was through this encounter that Jae-Hun uncovered a chilling truth: a death game had been orchestrated purely for the twisted entertainment of the wealthy elite. The elderly cancer patient revealed that his boredom with life had driven him to create the gruesome death game for his own twisted amusement. Jae-Hun was filled with rage at the man's heartlessness and vowed to put an end to the brutal games once and for all. Meanwhile, the story introduced Jun-Ho, a dedicated police officer with a complicated past. His brother had disappeared after being implicated in a fraud case involving the police. While searching his brother's room for clues, Jun-Ho stumbled upon a mysterious game card, sparking his own journey into the dark world of the death game. During his investigation, Jun-Ho tracked down Jae-Hun and discovered he was connected to the death game. Determined to uncover the truth, Jun-Ho followed him and managed to infiltrate the game. However, he had no intention of participating. To blend in, he killed one of the guards and assumed their disguise. Inside the game, Jun-Ho witnessed the horrors firsthand and gathered substantial evidence against its organizers. Despite the danger, he successfully escaped the island, carrying with him proof of the game's barbarity, ready to expose its dark secrets to the world. Jun-Ho had attempted to send all the evidence to the police, but the lack of signal on the island meant that none of his transmissions were received. His courageous mission took a tragic turn when he was captured by the front man, the mastermind responsible for orchestrating the deadly game. In a shocking twist, Jun-Ho discovered that the front man was none other than his own brother. Unmasking himself, the front man revealed his identity just before coldly shooting Jun-Ho, leaving him betrayed and gravely injured. Believing Jun-Ho to be dead, the front man discarded his body into the water, assuming the chapter was closed. And thus, the recap of the first season concluded. The story picks up in the next season, where we find Jae-Hun at a subway station, preparing to reunite with his daughter. However, as he stepped off the train, his attention was caught by two men nearby. To his shock, one of them was the very same individual who had given him the Squid Game card, setting his life on a path of unimaginable chaos. Jae-Hun quickly realized that the same individuals were gathering people for another deadly game. Determined not to let their malicious plans succeed, he rushed to confront the man, but by the time he reached him, it was too late. The man had already vanished. Meanwhile, Jun-Ho, who had taken the card from the game participant, immediately dialed the number on it. As soon as the call connected, he issued a chilling threat to the front man, vowing that this time, he would not allow the game to continue. His resolve was clear: he would stop the twisted game once and for all. The front man, hearing Jun-Ho's threats, responded with his own menacing words, warning him to go meet his daughter and stay out of trouble. It was then that Jun-Ho realized the front man and his associates had been monitoring him closely. But how could they have been tracking him all this time? A sudden realization hit him: there must be a tracker embedded in his body. Without wasting any time, he rushed to the washroom, frantically searching for it. After a tense moment, he found the tracker beneath his ear. Using a cutter, he carefully removed it, determined to cut all ties with the game's watchful eye. The scene shifts to a gangster who is training his new team. He instructs them to find a specific man at the subway station, a man dressed in a suit, carrying a briefcase filled with money. This man would play the Squid Game with them, and afterward, he would hand them a card. The team sets off on their mission, tracking the man with patience and precision. After a long search, they finally spot him. Engaging in the Squid Game with two individuals at the subway station, the men send his location to their boss, the gangster, and to Jun-Ho. They then begin to follow him, determined to uncover his next move. One day, the man visited a convenience store, purchasing a large number of breads and lucky draw cards before heading to a group of beggars. In front of them, he presented two options: one bread and one lucky draw card. Almost everyone chose the lucky draw, yet none of them won. Afterward, the man placed all the bread on the ground and began walking over it. He addressed the crowd, saying, "I haven't wasted this food. You have. You were all driven by greed, hoping to win money." He was subtly testing their mindset, gauging how many people were motivated by greed, preparing to use this knowledge to manipulate and trap them in the game next time. Meanwhile, Ji-Hun's team was tracking his movements, and they sent his new location to him. Ji-Hun, in a rush to reach the spot, was speeding, unaware that he had run a red light. This caught the attention of a traffic police officer, who stopped him. The officer was Jun-Ho, and he immediately noticed something odd about Ji-Hun's behavior. Rather than apologizing or arguing about the fine, Ji-Hun seemed agitated, almost as if he were trying to avoid something or run from a crime. Sensing that something was off, Jun-Ho quickly ran a check on Ji-Hun's car registration and discovered his name. It sparked a memory in Jun-Ho. He had tracked Ji-Hun to the Squid Game in the past, which now made everything seem even more suspicious. Jun-Ho, after obtaining Ji-Hun's address, continued his investigation. Meanwhile, the two men who had tracked the Squid Game participant decided to capture him before Ji-Hun arrived. They plotted to split the reward money once they eliminated the man. However, when they approached to kill him, they fell victim to the very man they intended to harm. When Ji-Hun arrived at the scene, he was met with the gruesome sight of blood on the road. He quickly realized that his people had been killed by the ruthless man. To his horror, he also noticed the man was watching him closely, a sinister presence lingering in the air. After leaving the area, Ji-Hun returned to his room, where he discovered that the man had captured his team. The man, driven by his sadistic enjoyment of the death game, was now subjecting them to the same brutal fate. The game the man had set up was a twisted version of the children's game, rock, paper, scissors, with a deadly wager. Whoever lost would be killed. As one of his men lost, the man immediately shot him, coldly taking his life. Afterward, he demanded the other man's address, and once he learned Jun-Ho's location, he left him there, preparing for the next phase of his plan. Later that evening, when Jun-Ho arrived at his house, he found the man already waiting there, having arrived before him. Though he had the opportunity to kill Ji-Hun, the man, as seen earlier, was far more intrigued by the concept of the death game. He decided to turn this into a personal game with Ji-Hun instead. Before starting, he revealed a chilling detail about his past. He used to be the one responsible for collecting the bodies of the dead during the Squid Game, further deepening the darkness of his twisted involvement in the game. The man coldly explained that his previous job of collecting bodies had become monotonous, and he longed for something more thrilling. He enjoyed killing people himself, so he made a request to the front man, asking for a more exciting task. The front man, in response, gave him a chilling assignment. He was told to kill his own father. Without hesitation, he picked up the gun and took his father's life. Afterward, the front man handed him the same gun, and from that moment on, he was free to kill anyone he wished. The man intervened just in time, saving Ji-Hun from Jun-Ho's wrath. With a shaky voice, he recounted the horrors he'd witnessed, including the deadly game orchestrated by the man who had just been defeated. He explained how one of his colleagues, even his boss, had been mercilessly killed in a twisted game of life and death. Ji-Hun, seizing the moment, turned to Jun-Ho and began unraveling the entire truth about the Squid Game. He explained the brutal rules, the senseless killings, and the despair that consumed the participants. His voice was firm yet filled with regret as he said, "I am not the villain here. I only want to end this game, to prevent more innocent lives from being destroyed." Jun-Ho, now conflicted, listened intently, realizing the depth of the horrors Jae-Hun had endured and the noble intention behind his actions. The weight of the truth began to shift his perception of the situation. Jun-Ho told Jae-Hun, "I followed you and reached that game. I went there and wore a guard suit. I tried to talk to you many times, but you couldn't talk to me. I know that in that game, they kill everyone. And after killing, what is done with those dead bodies? Their organs are taken out and sold. I know all this." Even Jae-Hun didn't know all these details. After hearing all this from Jun-Ho, Jae-Hun decided to bring Jun-Ho with him. He told Jun-Ho his plan: to kill all the creators of the Squid Game. He explained that there is a front man he has never seen before, who always comes wearing a black mask. This front man created the game along with an old cancer patient named Il. Jae-Hun's goal was to kill them and put an end to this game. The gangster had also overheard their conversation. He told them, "I want to support you too. I want to take revenge on them for the innocent friend of mine, who was my right-hand man. Now, I will not support you for money, but for your cause." After hearing this, Jae-Hun appreciated it and took him to his room, where a large amount of money was kept. He had won this money from the Squid Game. Jae-Hun explained that he would use this money to end the Squid Game. He showed them that he had also purchased many guns from the black market and had created a secret training place. However, he realized this wasn't enough. He needed more people for the fight. Jae-Hun then told Jun-Ho to leave his police job so that they could carry out their mission effectively. The scene shifts to introduce a new character, Ha-Neul, a poor girl who works at a hotel wearing a bunny costume to entertain children. She doesn't have a home and lives in the hotel's basement. During her time there, she becomes very close to a young girl who visits the hotel daily. However, the tragic part is that the little girl is suffering from bone marrow cancer. The girl needs a bone marrow transplant, but her father doesn't have enough money for the procedure, and the girl's life is now hanging by a thread. One day, the girl is rushed to the hospital in an emergency. Ha-Neul, hearing about this, goes to visit her at the hospital. She desperately wants to help the girl, but she doesn't even have money for herself, leaving her wondering how she can save the child. That night, we see Ha-Neul again in the parking lot. Two people approached Ha-Neul in the parking lot and handed her a Squid Game card. The scene then shifts to Jun-Ho, who is sitting with his mother. She appears deeply saddened, waiting for Jun-Ho's brother to return. Jun-Ho knows that his brother will never come back, given the nature of his job. Despite this, when his mother expresses hope and isn't satisfied with his words, Jun-Ho decides to search for his brother once again. The scene cuts, and we finally see Jae-Hun again, undergoing a dental procedure. After having one of his teeth removed, a fake tooth is implanted, which contains a tracker. He is preparing to meet the front man the next day, so he must be extremely cautious in everything he does. They also plan to catch the front man and eventually, all the shareholders involved in the Squid Game. It's revealed that the gangster in their group has recruited elite commandos through his connections. For these commandos, nothing is right or wrong, they work solely for money. Here, it is revealed that Ha-Neul was also being taken to the Squid Game. She goes with them, but it turns out she wasn't hired as a gamer. Instead, she was hired as a security guard. Meanwhile, Jun-Ho and Jae-Hun finally arrive at the address they obtained from the frontman's pocket. The address leads them to a club. Jun-Ho forbids them from going inside because the front man had already seen him on that island. He fears that if Jun-Ho enters, he might be recognized and their mission could fail. However, Jae-Hun and the gangster decide to go inside without him. As soon as they enter, Jun-Ho notices that two guards, wearing Squid Game uniforms, have also entered the party. Jun-Ho realizes that the front man hasn't entered the party yet, and he suspects that the two guards are likely there to check the security. He wants to inform Jae-Hun and the others about this, but when he goes inside, he sees that the front man's people have already taken Jae-Hun through another door. Using the tracker in Jae-Hun's mouth, they managed to track his car. Jae-Hun wakes up on the bed in the Squid Game facility, where he is assigned his old number. Like before, he sees many other people around him, all of them confused and uncertain about what's happening, just like the first time they were brought here. They are all unaware of the upcoming games and the deadly challenges that await them. The guards enter the room and begin explaining the rules of the game. They reveal the history of all the participants, showing that only those who owe millions of yen have been brought here. After sharing this information, the guards announce the grand prize. The winner will receive 45.6 million yen. They explain that the game will consist of 6 rounds, with 1 round taking place each day. After the guards finish explaining the rules, they mention that after each game, there will be a vote. The players will decide whether they want to continue or stop the game. If they choose to stop, the prize money will be divided among all the participants. Ji-Hun realizes that this new rule was introduced because of him. As the game progresses, everyone signs the contract, and Ji-Hun notices that most of the rules are the same as before, with only a few new ones added. After this, one by one, all the players' pictures were taken. Then, a famous Korean rapper arrived, surprising everyone. The players were excited and wanted to take a picture with him. He promised that once he left, he would take a picture with everyone. At this moment, Ji-Hun saw his old friend, and it was revealed that they had not seen each other in nearly 3 years. Because of Ji-Hun's disappearance, his friend was very angry with him. Ji-Hun then said to him, "I will go out and tell you all the truth. You have come to the wrong place. You shouldn't have come. And now, if you value your life, you have to do as I say." Just then, the game was about to begin, and everyone gathered on the ground. This was an old ground. Ji-Hun understood that this game was also an old one. The scene then cut to Jun-Ho, who, while tracking Ji-Hun's tracker, reached the island. However, he couldn't find any facility where the game was being played. As he continued tracking the signal, he and his team eventually reached a fisherman. It was seen that Ji-Hun's tracker was lying in the bushes. Upon finding this, Jun-Ho and his team began questioning the fisherman aggressively about the tracker. The fisherman replied that he had received the bait for free. Meanwhile, Ji-Hun was growing increasingly worried, wondering why Jun-Ho and his team hadn't arrived to rescue them. He began to question if something was wrong with his tracker. In a moment of realization, Ji-Hun discreetly removed his broken tooth from his mouth, suspecting that it might have been tampered with. Ji-Hun was shocked to realize that there was no tracker in his tooth. The game organizers had removed it before he came to the game, and he now understood that he was in deep trouble. How could he save anyone when he himself couldn't escape? Despite his situation, Ji-Hun was determined to save everyone's life. He gathered the players and told them that they would play the game according to his plan, or else they would be killed. As the game began, Ji-Hun took charge, guiding everyone with his experience. He was moving forward when the doll's mouth turned to face them. While most people followed Ji-Hun's lead, many still didn't believe that he was telling the truth. Meanwhile, the rapper noticed a fly near a girl's ear and jokingly told her to swat it. She turned around to look at him and started laughing. However, the doll detected her movement, and with a sniper's precision, it shot her in the head, instantly killing her. Due to this chaos, everyone started running in panic. Ji-Hun tried desperately to stop them, but anyone who moved was immediately killed. Now, realizing the gravity of the situation, everyone believed that Ji-Hun was right. Ji-Hun instructed everyone to move in a straight line, which would make it harder for the doll to detect their movements. Despite this, panic continued to spread. To cope with the chaos, the rapper consumed his own drugs, becoming semi-unconscious. In his disoriented state, he stumbled and pushed several people in front of him. This triggered the snipers, who detected their movements and killed them all instantly. As soon as the doll turned away, everyone rushed toward the finish line. Many managed to cross the line in time. However, a man who had been shot in the foot earlier called out to Ji-Hun for help. Despite the chaos, Ji-Hun and a player named Kat decided to support him. Together, they carried him toward the finish line. Tragically, just as they neared safety, a sniper shot the injured man in the head, killing him instantly. To their shock, the sniper was revealed to be No-Yul. This act of No-Yul angered the guards as it violated their protocol. Typically, they avoided headshots to preserve the organs of the participants, which the organizers intended to sell for profit. Damaging the organs rendered them worthless. Meanwhile, in another scene, Jun-Ho is shown deeply concerned about Jae-Hun's whereabouts. He realized that the Squid Game facility was likely not on any nearby island, as the organizers had deliberately misled him. Understanding that continuing the search in worsening conditions could be futile, he and his team decided to retreat for now, as a severe storm was approaching the sea. The scene shifts back to the players, who are overwhelmed with fear and guilt from witnessing so many deaths. As the guards enter their room, panic sets in, and many players plead for mercy, begging the guards to spare their lives. However, the guards remain indifferent, showing no emotion. Instead, they announce the next stage of the game. One guard steps forward and informs them of the new rules. He reveals that out of the original 500 players, only 365 remain after the first game. The players are instructed to look at the large money box above them, which now contains a massive sum of money, their potential prize. The guard explains that a voting process will now take place. If the majority agrees to end the game, the prize money will be divided among all the remaining players, and they will be free to leave. This announcement creates a buzz among the players. Some see it as their chance to escape, while others are tempted by the growing prize money and consider staying despite the risks. The tension in the room is palpable as the players prepare to cast their votes, knowing the decision will determine their fate. The guards revealed the winning amount, pointing out that if it were divided among everyone, each person would receive very little, far less than their outstanding debts. Realizing this, many players decided to continue the game, driven by desperation. Seeing their resolve falter, Jae-Hun stepped forward and pleaded with them, "If we stay here, we'll all end up dead. Don't let greed control you. Vote to leave and save your lives." As Jae-Hun's words sank in, a voice broke the silence. A tantric seated behind the group, also a player, spoke calmly. "Our death will come where it is written. There's no escaping it. Don't fear death, face it head on." His words stirred mixed emotions among the players, leaving them torn between hope and despair. After hearing this, the voting began. Jae-Hun stepped forward first and cast his vote to stop the game. One by one, the players moved to vote, with many choosing not to stop the game. Watching this unfold, Jae-Hun felt immense pain and frustration. As the voting progressed, the results became tied. Half of the players had voted to leave, while the other half wanted to continue. Now, all eyes turned to the final player whose decision would determine the outcome. Player number 1. Player number 1 stepped forward, paused for a moment, and then made his choice: to stop the game. With this single vote, the game was brought to an end, altering the fate of everyone involved. We saw that this individual was none other than Eun-Ho, the frontman, who had joined the game as a player himself. Following this, the scene shifted to the coffins of the deceased players, some marked with crosses. This marking indicated that their organs were to be harvested. 2 men were working on extracting the organs, but they managed to retrieve usable ones from only one body. They suspected that one of the guards had deliberately aimed for the players' heads, causing the organs to be damaged beyond use. This was disrupting their business, so they promptly reported the issue to the front man. The scene then shifted back to the players, where Jae-Hun appeared deeply troubled. He was fully aware that anyone participating in this game ultimately faced death. During this time, Eun-Ho approached the other players, including Jae-Hun. He said, "You've been in this game before. You have experience. You can help us save lives while still having a chance to win the prize money." After hearing this, Jae-Hun explained that the last time they played a game called the Dong-Geun game, where they had to carve out shapes from sugar candy. The triangle was the easiest shape, while the umbrella was the hardest. Hearing this, Eun-Ho remarked, "Whoever chose the umbrella must be the biggest fool." This made Jae-Hun recall that in the previous season, he had chosen the umbrella himself. All the crowd left, and alone, they asked Jae-Hun, "Why did you come back here? You already have a lot of money." Jae-Hun got upset and replied, "That money wasn't mine. It belonged to the people who died. And even the money we win here will belong to the dead people." He added, "Don't think too much." Hearing this, Jae-Hun lashed out and said, "You could have stopped this game. Why didn't you stop it?" They responded, because many people want to play this game to win money. Their debt is far greater than the amount we won yesterday. Ending the discussion, Jae-Hun's friend said, "Alright, fine. We need to plan a new strategy for the next games to save as many lives as possible." On the other side, we see another debate taking place. A YouTuber named Jang was there. He also dealt in digital currency, and many people, including the rapper Thomas, had invested with him. Due to a downturn, all of his money was lost, which is why he had joined the game. Thomas and his associates began beating him, demanding, "You need to return our money." Jae-Hun and his friends stepped in to stop the fight. After this, everyone went back to their beds. While lying down, they apologized to Jae-Hun for their behavior and explained that they had to stay in the game because their wife was suffering from liver cancer and needed a liver transplant. To afford it, they had taken out loans. However, their department suspected them of corruption, resulting in the loss of their job and leaving them with a massive debt. Now, they couldn't leave without money. Seeing their emotional state, Jae-Hun understood their compulsion and decided to join everyone in the next game. The scene cuts, and we see the new frontman calling Ha-Neul, as she had been shooting people in the head. When the frontman questioned her about this, she explained that the previous frontman had instructed her to kill useless people. She said, "I shoot them in the head because they are still alive." The frontman then tells her not to shoot anyone in the head again, saying, "Listen, we take out their organs, and those organs can save many lives. So, remember, from now on, you will not shoot anyone in the head. Otherwise, we'll sell your organs too. And I know you want to stay alive to get your daughter back." Through this conversation, we learn about Ha-Neul's story. She had once been part of the Korean military, but during a war in which she participated, her daughter went missing. To this day, she is still searching for her. The scene then shifts to Jun-Ho, who is in his office asking for help from the commissioner, explaining the entire story. However, since he has no evidence, the commissioner tells him, "You know we can't take any action without proof. And your story isn't very believable. It seems like your mental health is not good." Saying this, the commissioner walks away, revealing that Jun-Ho has lost his job. Despite this setback, Jun-Ho refuses to give up. He reunites his old team to locate the Squid Game island. The scene cuts back to the game, where the Dok-G challenge has started again. Following Jae-Hun's advice, everyone chooses the triangle. However, when they open their boxes, each triangle is filled with many tiny triangles. Seeing this, everyone is shocked and begins to shout at Jun-Ho. Jae-Hun also becomes nervous, but then he wakes up, realizing it was all just a dream. Meanwhile, everyone else had also woken up, and it was time for the second game. They were taken to a new ground, where Jae-Hun was surprised and confused because he had never played this game before. Everyone gathered around him, asking about the game, but Jae-Hun said that this game was new to him, and he had no idea about it. Hearing this, everyone got angry. Before they could attack him, In-Ho stepped in and stopped the fight. The players were then instructed to form teams of 5. Danny, who was pregnant, and Jang's ex-girlfriend, was approached by Jang to join his team, but she refused as she no longer wanted to be with him. She then went to Jae-Hun's team and asked him, "Please, let me join your team. I'm pregnant, and no one else is willing to take me." They agreed, and they formed a team together. On the other side, another team was shown, consisting of Kat, Maddie, and a mother and son, Park and Gyung. Tantric eventually joined their group as well. Once the teams were formed, they were told that each team's feet would be tied together. They were all required to move together in a circle, and after 5 meters, there would be a game they had to play to continue progressing. They also needed to complete their circle within a given time. As soon as they heard about the game, everyone started coordinating, with each person taking responsibility for the game they were good at. The game started, and the first 2 teams were given the chance to play together. The first team played tag very well and advanced quickly, but they failed to hit the stone with another stone. The stone went ahead of them, and when they moved to get it, they fell. Time was wasting a lot. They completed this round and went ahead. The next challenge was to roll a top, which one of their team members failed to do on the first try. but managed to do correctly on the second attempt. On the other hand, the second team had already struggled in their first round. Eventually, time ran out, and the people of the Squid Game killed the other team members. The team that had completed many rounds couldn't complete its circle on time, so they were shot and killed. Seeing this, everyone gets nervous and scared. Everyone's dead bodies were taken out, and one of them was still alive. They picked up his body in a coffin and marked it with a cross. Meanwhile, Ha-Neul came and shot the man in his head, killing him. The front man witnessed this and grew angry at her actions. The next team to play was Kat's team. They managed their team well and made progress. In the Dong-Geun game, the girl struggled with her card, but Kat advised her to hold it upside down, which worked. They moved ahead and faced the challenge of hitting a stone with another stone. The boy initially failed, but Kat encouraged everyone to move together, which helped. The boy's mom reminded him of the man who had stolen all their money, which made him angry and motivated him to successfully hit the stone. They moved ahead again and faced the challenge of catching 5 dice together. Young struggled initially, but her son encouraged her, and she managed to succeed. They completed this round and moved on. Next was Tantric's turn, where he had to roll the top. He struggled at first, but Kat slapped him and threatened to kill him if he didn't succeed. This motivated him to roll the top successfully. They won the round successfully, and in the next challenge, they had to roll the pomp with their feet. Kat directed everyone to look away and skillfully rolled the pomp 5 times without difficulty. They moved ahead and completed their circle just in time. Their victory brought immense joy, as it felt like a win for everyone in the team. The teams that couldn't complete their round in time were shot and killed. The game continued, with some teams emerging victorious while others lost. The losing teams were shot. When it was Jae-Hun's team's turn, they exchanged best wishes with the other team and moved ahead to play the game. The first game was played by Danny, who struggled but managed to complete it. The second game was handled by Jae-Hun's friend, who also faced challenges but persevered. The third game was played by Lee, one of their team members, who expertly held and rolled 5 dice. He explained that he was an expert at this game because he used to play it with his sisters. Eun-Ho was tasked with the fourth game, which involved rolling the top. However, he couldn't succeed on his first attempt. The team tried to help him, but on the next try, he threw the top backwards, leaving everyone confused. Jae-Hun, pretending to be upset by the defeat, started beating him. He then advised Eun-Ho to recall how he used to play with the top in his childhood. Taking Jae-Hun's advice, Eun-Ho managed to roll the top successfully this time. The next turn was Jae-Hun's, where he had to hit the pomp with his feet. He managed to do it well in his first 4 attempts, but on the 5th attempt, the pomp moved ahead. Before the top fell, Eun-Ho intervened, pushing Jae-Hun's feet forward to help him win the game. The team celebrated their victory as they completed the task before time. However, the team in front of them, who either couldn't finish on time or failed to complete the task, was shot and killed. Jae-Hun felt a deep sadness witnessing this. They returned to their room, where many were visibly upset, thinking that the victory money would be shared among everyone. However, the guards entered and revealed the prize for winning. They informed everyone that 110 people had been killed, leaving 255 survivors. As a result, each winner would receive 78 million yen. The guards then announced that there would be a vote, and if everyone voted to stop the game, the money would be divided equally among all the remaining players. Many players were dissatisfied with the small amount of money and felt it was not enough to cover their debts. Jae-Hun, however, told his team to vote to stop the game. He promised to give them more money after they left. His team agreed to this plan. In the voting, Eun-Ho was the first to cast his vote to stop the game. Next, Park's mother, Young, advised her son to vote to stop the game, believing that the money would be enough to pay off their debts. However, Park, who was deeply in debt and had not told his mother about the extent of it, chose to continue the game, hoping for a larger payout. After the vote, Jae-Hun's attempt to stop the game was ultimately in vain, as the majority chose to continue. Park, noticing his mother's anger, went to her and tried to explain his situation. He confessed, "Mom, I have a lot of debt, and the people I owe money to are dangerous. If I don't pay them back, they'll take my organs and sell them. Upon hearing this, Young's anger softened and she understood his desperation. She forgave him, and in return, Park promised his mother that in the next vote, he would choose to stop the game. This promise gave Young some comfort, even as the brutal game continued. Jang, who had voted to continue the game, saw how broken Jae-Hun was by the decision. Feeling guilty, Jang apologized to him, explaining that he was forced to continue because of a massive debt he owed to a powerful man. He said, "I had to take the money and leave, but I promise, the next time, I will vote to stop this game." His words were filled with sadness and regret, and as he spoke, he admitted that in the next game, they might even have to kill each other. The gravity of his statement cast a heavy silence over the group, and everyone was visibly shaken by the realization of what was to come. They all knew that the stakes were only getting higher, and the cost of survival was becoming increasingly unbearable. Jang and the rapper, Thomas, were in the washroom when the confrontation occurred. Thomas, furious, surrounded Jang and said, "You are my debtor and my slave. You'll win the money and give it to me." Jang, trying to remain calm, responded, "I didn't cause your loss. You took the shares at my suggestion, but when I told you to sell them, you ignored my advice out of greed. You lost your money on your own. I'm not to blame." However, Thomas didn't care. He was consumed by his anger and said, "Whatever the reason, win and give my money back to me." Jang, starting to smile, retorted, "If I win this money, you would have died," implying that he was prepared to do whatever it took to survive, regardless of the consequences for others. Hearing this, Thomas became enraged and lunged at Jang, grabbing his neck and starting to strangle him. The tension was high, and just as things seemed to escalate, Jae-Hun's team arrived and intervened, forcing Thomas to stop before things went too far. The scene highlighted the desperation and tension among the players, showing that alliances and friendships were fragile in this deadly game. The constant pressure and fear of death brought out the worst in some, while others tried to maintain their humanity amidst the chaos. In their room, Jae-Hun warned the others, "We need to take turns guarding each other. I've seen how people turn into animals when money is at stake. They'll even kill other team members to get the prize money." His words served as a stark reminder of the savagery they were all facing and the importance of staying alert. Jae-Hun stayed on watch for a long time, keeping an eye out to ensure no one would harm each other. Eventually, Jang woke up and saw that Jae-Hun was still awake. "You sleep now," Jang said. "I'll take over the watch." As Jang kept watch, he remembered the time when Jae-Hun had come to him for money. Jang felt regretful, realizing that if he had the money, he would have helped him. Jae-Hun, however, never spoke a word about it. There was a quiet understanding between them, despite the circumstances. In this brutal game, amidst all the violence and chaos, small gestures of humanity still existed, reminding them of the bonds they once had. From their conversation, it becomes clear that Jae-Hun and Jang share a deep and long-standing friendship. They've been together since childhood, through school, and even in their work life. In-Ho, listening to their exchange, could sense the history between them. Jang, curious, asks Jae-Hun, "You had a lot of money, then why did you come to this game?" Jae-Hun doesn't answer directly but instead asks, "If I die in this game, what will you do with that money?" Jang becomes somber at the question and replies, "Don't talk like that. We'll get out of here together." Jae-Hun's voice carries a mix of frustration and longing as he responds, "I want that too, to get out alive together. But right now, I'm losing. These people aren't understanding me." There's a palpable sense of defeat in his words, revealing the emotional toll the game has taken on him. The scene shifts to Jun-Ho, who embarks on his journey to find Jae-Hun. A new day dawns, and the players are informed that it's time to prepare for the next game. The guards, too, are ready and on alert. The players are then taken to a large hall, where a rotating stage awaits them. As the stage spins, they are assigned a number. Each player must team up with the others assigned the same number and head to a designated room. The room must be locked, and everyone must ensure that the number of people in the room matches the assigned number. If there are too many or too few people in any room, those players will be killed. The tension rises as everyone realizes that the game's rules are growing more deadly with each round. As the rules of the game were explained, everyone quickly began to strategize on how to approach this challenge. The stage began to rotate, and the players were assigned the number 10. They were given just 30 seconds to form a group of 10 and lock themselves in a designated room. Ji-Hun's team, along with Kat's team, quickly moved to a room and locked the door before the time ran out. As the 30 seconds ticked away, the guards outside began shooting the remaining players who failed to form their group in time. Ji-Hun stood there, feeling a deep sadness as he witnessed the brutal elimination of so many people, knowing that the next rounds would only get more perilous. The weight of the game's cruelty was hitting him hard. Tantric, standing in the room, smugly declared, "You are all alive because of me." Her words caught everyone's attention, and all eyes turned to her, including Ji-Hun's. She locked eyes with him and continued, "If you're still alive, it means something big is about to happen." Her bold statement fell on deaf ears as the others ignored her and focused on the upcoming round. They moved toward the rotating stage for the next phase of the game. When the stage turned, they were assigned the number 4. In an instant, the teams split up, and each group hurried to find a room to lock themselves in. Kat's team decided to leave Tantric behind, heading to a room without her. Similarly, Ji-Hun's team chose to leave In-Ho behind. Once again, the remaining players outside were eliminated by the guards, their lives taken in an instant. The tension was rising, and the reality of the game's deadly consequences grew clearer with each round. As the guards inspected the room and discovered 3 people inside, they immediately apprehended them and carried out their execution. When Ji-Hun and his team emerged from the room, they couldn't help but notice Tantric staring at them with a peculiar expression. Her gaze was unsettling, but they were too preoccupied with the thought of In-Ho to pay her much attention. Meanwhile, In-Ho, surprisingly calm, explained, "I make friends quickly, so I'm still alive." His nonchalant attitude made Ji-Hun and the others uneasy, but they couldn't deny the unsettling truth in his words. The next round began, and the rotating stage assigned them the number 3. Without wasting any time, they once again split up their teams and moved forward, knowing that survival depended on staying one step ahead. The tension in the air grew as the deadly game continued to unfold. Young wanted to go with her son Park, but 2 boys forcibly took him with them into a room. Young got upset to see that her son had left her. She stood there, and Ji-Hun and In-Ho came to her and took her into a room. Sitting there, Young was quite sad because her son didn't care about her even if she died. Hearing her, Ji-Hun and In-Ho also became upset. They came out of the room again. The game was still ongoing, and players were continuing to form teams. The guards were eliminating those left behind. Ji-Hun's team remained united, determined to survive. They understood that the game wouldn't be easy, and they had to be cautious to stay alive. Park was troubled because he had left his mother behind. Young hugged and comforted him. Kat and Maddie also joined in, hugging Young. They were saved by a man, and he became part of their team. The next round began, and they were assigned number 6. Once again, they started forming new teams. Kat and Maddie's group took Danny from Ji-Hun's team and headed toward a room. However, by mistake, Maddie got separated and was left behind. In the meantime, Jang quickly arrived and locked their room. Maddie, left outside, was shot and killed in front of them. Kat was devastated by her loss. Maddie had been the first to befriend her when she entered the game, and now, seeing her die, Kat grew angry at Jang. Jang told Kat, "If I hadn't come in time to lock your room, all of you would have died. Be thankful that I saved your life, because Maddie couldn't make it inside in time." His words were valid, so the group's anger toward him began to subside. The next round began, and In-Ho predicted that they would be given the number 2, since there were 50 rooms and 126 people remaining. As he had anticipated, they received the number 2. Everyone quickly formed teams of 2 and rushed toward the rooms. In the room where In-Ho and Jang were, a third man entered. If the guards had spotted them, they would have been killed immediately. To protect himself, In-Ho grabbed the man's neck and killed him. Jang, witnessing this, grew nervous, realizing just how dangerous In-Ho truly was. The game eventually ended, and the remaining players returned to their rooms. The scene shifted to the bodies of the deceased being placed in coffins. Those who had died in a way that made their organs unsuitable for extraction were burned, while the bodies of the others had their organs harvested. The scene cuts to Jun-Ho in a boat, attempting to locate the right island using a drone. He was instructed to focus on islands they had never searched before, and Jun-Ho agreed. Through the drone's view, they spotted an island with a small gate, which Jun-Ho deduced could lead to the facility. He immediately dispatched his team to investigate. As his team reached the gate and opened the cabin, a massive explosion went off, killing many of his team members. This left Jun-Ho in shock, realizing that the people behind the game had set up this trap. The explosion was designed to distract and eliminate those who ventured too close to the truth. The scene cuts back to the game, where the players are discussing their fate. Tantric approaches Kat's team and says, "You threw me out of your team. Now I curse you all to die like Maddie." Young, unfazed, responds, "Your words mean nothing." At that moment, Jang approaches Danny, wanting to adopt her son. He tells her, "We'll vote to stop the game, and after leaving here, we'll invest the money in stocks and live a good life." Danny, angered, retorts, "Even today, you came to me for my money, not for me. Do whatever you want with your money. I'll raise my child with it." With that, she storms off. On the other side, Ji-Hun and In-Ho tally the votes of the players, and it becomes clear that more people want to stop the game than to continue. Ji-Hun, seeing the situation, suggests, "We should talk to the others and convince them to stop the game." In-Ho, however, warns, "Look, we can't do that. Those who want to continue the game will be furious. There will be a fight, and people will start beating each other. That's exactly what the organizers want." The voting was about to begin. Before it started, the guards informed the players that 100 people were left. If all 100 of them decided to leave the game, everyone would receive 365 million yens, which was almost enough for everyone. As the voting began, the tension was high. This time, the vote was critical because the number of people who wanted to stop the game was equal to the number of those who were greedy and wanted to continue. It was revealed that a girl voted to continue the game, influenced by Tantric, which shifted the balance in favor of those wanting to continue. The most crucial part was that In-Ho's vote remained, and it would ultimately decide the outcome. Everyone was on edge, particularly Jan, who was haunted by his actions in the room, where he had killed a man. The atmosphere in the game was tense as the players gathered to discuss how the deaths of new players had affected the voting. It was revealed that 2 individuals who had wanted to continue the game had died, including one man from Ji-Hun's team. If voting were to happen the next day, they would have won, but Ji-Hun understood the grim reality. The voting wouldn't happen fairly, and they would likely be targeted for death during the night. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to the guards, who were engaged in their illicit activities. They were transporting organs through the waterways, where they would be sold at high prices on the black market. The scene showed some guards preparing, wearing black masks, as a new game one involving murder was about to begin. Ji-Hun informed his team that they would likely be targeted during the night, as it had happened before. Fear quickly spread among the group. Ji-Hun then told everyone, "If we want to survive, we'll have to kill the members of the game, but it's not going to be easy." His words hung heavy in the air, underscoring the harsh reality of what they had to do to stay alive. Ji-Hun reassured the team, "It's not as bad as it seems. We can do this if we want. The authorities are on the upper floors. If we kill the guards, take their guns, and then eliminate the authorities, we can end the game." In-Ho responded cautiously, "That's too dangerous. Our people could end up dying too." Ji-Hun confidently replied, "The chances of that happening are low. They won't expect us to target the authorities." In-Ho looked at him with doubt and asked, "Really? They have no idea?" The scene shifts to late night, where Ji-Hun and his team members are hiding under the bed. They know that the upcoming fight will result in many deaths, so they take precautions to stay hidden and avoid being seen or killed in the morning. Ji-Hun is also aware that the guards don't want to kill too many people. If too many people die, it would spoil the fun of their game. As the people who wanted to continue the game attacked Ji-Hun's team, the guards quickly intervened to stop the fight. The guards began checking the fallen players to see if any were dead. Jae-Hun's team, however, remained hidden and successfully managed to snatch the guards' guns. This had been their plan all along, to pretend to die during the fight, wait for the guards to approach, and then take their guns. With these weapons, they planned to strike back at the authorities. Seeing the chaos, many more guards rushed in to help their colleagues and regain control. In a moment of desperation, Eun-Ho took the gun and shot his own guards, ensuring that no one would suspect him of being one of the authorities. Witnessing this, the new frontman called for his guards to join him in his room. As they began to leave, the door slammed shut before one of the guards could exit, and he surrendered to them. However, Jae-Hun decided not to kill him. One of Jae-Hun's team members wanted to kill the opponents who had attacked their group, but Jae-Hun stopped him, saying, "We won't kill them." The man argued that they had become ruthless, driven by greed, and deserved to be killed. Jae-Hun responded, "If we kill them, there will be no difference between us and them. We didn't take these weapons to kill them. We took them to take down the people who created this horrific game and are running it." As the war began and the players had to move forward, Eun-Ho urged, "We have to fight now. We might not get another chance." Many of the others pressed ahead, but Park hesitated. Young, however, stopped him from following. Many people moved forward for the upcoming battle. Eun-Ho took the guns from the guards, and Kat, being a former military member, taught them how to shoot. After preparing, Jae-Hun removed the mask of one of the guards and was shocked to see that the guard was just a young child. Surprised, he told the boy, "Take us to your boss." The young guard, seeing no other option, began to lead them towards the boss's location. As they made their way out, they were immediately met with an onslaught of guards attacking them. A fierce battle erupted, with both sides exchanging gunfire. Many guards were struck down by their bullets, but Jae-Hun's team managed to survive and push forward. Kat, showing her expertise, expertly shot and destroyed all the CCTV cameras, ensuring that no one could monitor their movements. After a hard-fought battle, they finally reached the control room. The young guard, still with them, told Jae-Hun, "You can open the control room using the mask." As soon as Jae-Hun received the mask from the young guard, he was shocked to see the front man standing behind him. To his astonishment, the front man, who was overseeing everything, was none other than Eun-Ho, the man he had trusted. Before they could make their next move, the guards began firing at them. With no magazines left to counterattack, they were momentarily helpless. Despite the chaos, Jae-Hun managed to open the control room using the mask. He moved ahead with Jang, and using a walkie-talkie, he informed Eun-Ho about the security guards, hoping to strategize their next step. The tension in the air was palpable as the situation continued to spiral out of control. Once inside the control room, Jang and Jae-Hun immediately started fighting the guards, taking them down one by one as they pushed forward. Meanwhile, the black-masked man, observing their progress through the CCTV cameras, quickly dispatched his entire team of guards to stop them. On the other side, Jae-Hun and Jang were under heavy fire from the remaining guards. As their ammunition dwindled, they found themselves in a precarious situation, with more and more guards closing in on them. Realizing they were about to be overpowered, Jae-Hun urgently called out to Eun-Ho, asking him to come inside and help them. The tension escalated as time was running out, and the fight for survival grew more intense. Eun-Ho, hearing the urgency, quickly responded, but with a grim tone, explaining that he had run out of bullets. He instructed Jae-Hun and Jang to retrieve extra magazines from the guard's storage room, knowing that there were plenty of spare rounds available. Despite the growing danger, it was clear that Eun-Ho wouldn't be able to assist right away. As time was ticking and the guards closed in, Jae-Hun knew they couldn't afford to wait any longer. Jang, ever the reliable ally, covered for Jae-Hun by taking out guards from above, ensuring they had some breathing room. With Jang's support, Jae-Hun dashed to the fallen guards and quickly retrieved their magazines, reloading his weapon in the nick of time. Lee, now fully aware of the critical situation, entered the hall and started collecting the magazines from the fallen guards. Park, recognizing the importance of securing ammunition, immediately joined him in the task. Meanwhile, In-ho, observing Ji-Hun's growing strength after he reloaded his weapon and began to take down more guards, felt a sense of urgency. He knew that Ji-Hun was becoming a bigger threat with every passing moment. In a calculated move to distract Ji-Hun and regain control, In-ho approached him and said, "I saw a map. I believe there's a back door leading to the control room. I'll go there to check it out and inform you. You should proceed to the control room through the main entrance." This diversion was In-ho's way of separating them, giving him a chance to either manipulate the situation or to gain an upper hand. Ji-Hun, trusting In-ho's words, handed him his last magazine, hoping that the plan would work. As Lee made his way upstairs to collect the magazines, the sound of gunfire echoed through the hall, filling him with dread. He hesitated, his fear growing with each shot fired. Kat, noticing his hesitation, called him over the walkie-talkie, urging him to come upstairs. But in a moment of panic, Lee threw the walkie-talkie aside, unable to summon the courage to face the danger upstairs. Frustrated and angry at his cowardice, Kat cursed him over the radio. She couldn't afford to wait any longer. Determined to get the magazines herself, she made the decision to head downstairs, ready to take the risk and do what needed to be done. In-ho, using the back way, took cover and carefully planned his next move. He then contacted Ji-Hun via walkie-talkie, pretending to be injured from an attack by the guards. To make his deception more convincing, In-ho manipulated the situation by playing the sound of a man groaning in pain over the walkie-talkie. Ji-Hun, hearing the sound, immediately believed that In-ho had been seriously hurt in the skirmish. However, unbeknownst to Ji-Hun, In-ho had orchestrated the entire scenario. Once he had successfully manipulated Ji-Hun's thoughts, In-ho turned his attention to the man he had injured and quickly shot him with his gun, killing him. Ji-Hun, still on the other end of the walkie-talkie, was horrified as he listened to the gunshot and the final moments of the man's life, not realizing the full extent of In-ho's betrayal. Ji-Hun, deeply disturbed by the gunshot, thought that In-ho had been killed. He felt a deep sense of loss, believing In-ho to be a true friend he could rely on. Little did he know, In-ho had betrayed him, and the realization of this made Ji-Hun even more upset. Meanwhile, Kat was outside gathering magazines when a group of guards entered their room. Initially, Kat wanted to fight back and eliminate them, but Gyung stopped her, urging her not to kill them. For reasons she couldn't quite explain, Kat chose to listen to Gyung, despite her initial desire to take action. The tension was high, and Kat, although unsure of why she followed Gyung's lead, held back from attacking. Due to their failure to reach the outside in time, everyone found themselves in a position where surrender was their only option. The guards outnumbered them, and with no ammunition left to fight back, the situation grew dire. One by one, the guards closed in and killed those who resisted. The scene cuts, and we see that Ji-Hun and Jang, having run out of bullets, are also forced to surrender. As they lower their weapons, the front man steps forward. To their shock, it is revealed that the front man is none other than In-ho. In-ho looked at Ji-Hun and coldly said, "You must have enjoyed being here, but everything you've done has been in vain. You'll pay the price for it." He raised his gun, pointing it directly at Ji-Hun, but instead of shooting him, he turned and shot Jang. Ji-Hun's heart shattered as he watched his friend fall. In a moment of pure anguish, Ji-Hun screamed loudly, his voice filled with pain and disbelief at the loss of his close companion. The season ends on a cliffhanger, leaving the audience with numerous unanswered questions. Who ultimately won the game? Who took home the money? Will Jun-Ho uncover the truth behind the sinister events? These mysteries remain unresolved, teasing the possibility of a new season to continue the story. Ji-Hun is left in shock and grief after witnessing Jang's death. In-ho, now revealed as the front man, stands over them, the gun still smoking in his hand. The tense silence is broken only by the faint sound of Ji-Hun's heart beating, a reflection of the emotional turmoil he's enduring. As the camera focuses on Ji-Hun's anguished face, tears streaming down his cheeks, his mouth agape in a silent scream, The screen fades to black, leaving viewers in suspense. The season concludes, with the fate of the characters and the game hanging in the balance.
Want to uncover the thrilling twists of the next season? Hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share it with your friends to make sure you don't miss the exciting explanation coming soon. The answers are closer than you think. Don't let them slip away.